Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Social Biz Breakdown, where we talk about everything social media and social media management. So, today I'm going to hit a hot topic. I want to talk about offboarding. So, how do you optimize the client's offboarding experience as a social media manager? A lot of times, the offboarding experience can be the same no matter what niche you're in, but we're really going to get into it and really make sure that you understand maybe how you should be offboarding your clients to ensure that they have a very smooth experience, and hopefully one day they may come back to you and or refer you to somebody else. So, when you are successfully managing social media, that can be quite an art form, right? Intertwining your creativity with a data analysis or community management and content creation to really create that marketing world for your client is a lot, right? So, at some point, even the most dynamic business connection. So, if you're thinking, oh, I think we have a great relationship, it might come to an end. I have had some amazing clients that have decided to, part ways because their business has changed. Something with their model is different. Maybe there's something going on in their personal life. It a lot of the times it really has nothing to do with you, especially if you're blindsided by it. If you're doing your job and you're doing it correctly, there's no reason that you can't have a smooth offboarding experience. That way, like I said, maybe one day they'll come back to you and or refer you on. So, with the rapid growth and change within social media in general, clients are continually reassessing their strategies and providers. So, that's you and I, to figure out what they need. So, having an effective client offboarding process is important. This process isn't just about ending that contract agreement. It's a moment to really sorry. It's a moment to demonstrate value once more, same as you've been providing throughout the whole experience with them, but leaving a lasting impression that could spark future collaborations and referrals, like I mentioned. So really making that offboarding process shine. So we're going to talk about a series of steps that you, as a social media manager or freelancer or virtual assistant, need to use to really elevate your client offboarding experience and, I don't know, surprise and delight your client one last time. Just because you have been serving and fostering that positive environment with them for the past how long you've been working together. So you also want this process to go just as smooth. So the first step is you really want to make sure that you're understanding your client's needs. So, before you begin planning this delicate dance of a disengagement, is what I call it, you must have a clear understanding of your client's needs. So, both stated and unstated. So, you kind of have to read their mind in a bit. So, evaluate the initial goals that you guys had set out together in that discovery call, strategy call, whatever your one on ones. So, at the beginning of the engagement, and effectively make sure that you met those or ask where you didn't meet those, right? So assessing client needs and expectations. So did you specifically have goals that you were trying to achieve? Perhaps they wanted you to build brand awareness, maybe increase their lead generation, improve customer service, or just elevate them as a brand. So you want to reflect on how well that social media strategy aligned with their objectives and then provide measurable outcomes that you achieved. So what I'm trying to say is really give them everything that you guys had talked about as far as goals and what you did and how you achieved that goal for them. So you're kind of providing them with a report card, maybe is the best way to say of, here's what we did together, here's how I helped you, here's the growth that we saw, so on and so forth. So you also want to gauge their satisfaction. So were there any indications of dissatisfaction throughout your contract period? So you want to identify these areas where your client might have felt underwhelmed, you could have maybe went a different direction, but also provide insights into areas of improvement within your own operations. So really ask them, hey, maybe we didn't hit this mark. What, in your opinion, could we have done differently? Or really anything, because you want to be able to get that information for them to better serve your new clients that you're going to be getting. So it's very important to gauge that satisfaction. A lot of clients will receive a survey from me. So I'll send them a survey just saying, thank you for working with me. And it has a bunch of questions and they're talking about what we did together, what I could have done better, all this kind of stuff. So you want to create something like that, or even if you're verbally talking to them, just get that information verbally from them. That will help you in the future make sure that you are providing the best possible service going forward. The next step is you want to create a transition plan. So this one is really important, and a lot of people miss this step. So it's a part of effective onboarding is making sure that, sorry, a part of effective offboarding process begins with a clear plan that sets the tone for like the final weeks, the final month that you will be working together. This plan ensures that you have a smooth handover or maybe just like tapering off of services so it's not just this blunt stop. And it's important to make sure that you're setting clear timelines and deliverables in that plan. So define the duration of your transition. In your contract, did you ask for a 15-day notice, a 30-day notice, whatever it is, make sure in that timeline that you're talking about what's going to be happening. So saying, okay, I have content scheduled out until this day. I'm just wrapping up this campaign. I'll transfer any client owned accounts or any deliverables over to you by this certain time. And whatever you're doing for that client, just set a clear timeline of when all of that's going to be happening. And then make sure that you're communicating during this process. So discussing that transition plan with your client and just come to a mutual agreement on the process. So, being very transparent during all this is very important about the what and the whys of what's happening. It can really help manage expectations throughout the whole transition. Another step is the knowledge transfer. So, what I mean by this is that if you've been with your client for a while or if you've gained a lot of resources, you probably have a folder somewhere or something that you keep with all that knowledge inside of there. So, anything that you have acquired with your partnership with your client will be incredibly valuable to them. So, I highly recommend providing them with this information during that offboarding process. So, sharing those insights and those best practices is important. So maybe jump on a call, like a knowledge sharing session, if you want to call it, where you can review the performance, of everything that you've done against your client's goals, and then talk about maybe future strategies or something that they can do. Lessons learned, something that maybe you're in there every day, you're doing it. So what could they be doing going forward? Provide that to them. That is a huge value add during the offboarding process. And then if you need to do some sort of training, create SOPs, something like that, again, you don't have to do this part. I don't want you to think that you have to be creating something if a client is leaving, but if you did create some sort of SOP, I highly recommend providing that to your client at that time. Because honestly, going forward, you're not going to need that anymore unless they come back on with you. And again, you can save that or they can just provide it to you if they sign back on. So, a next step is feedback collection. So, we talked about this a little bit, but feedback isn't just a one-way street when it comes to offboarding. It's also an invaluable opportunity to gather constructive critiques and praises that will actually empower you to refine and enhance your service in the future, like I mentioned. So, you can create that survey. I have one, or schedule some sort of feedback session where that's all you're going to talk about is that you can share your thoughts and feelings about how the engagement went, whatever you want to do. Ask what worked well, what could have been better, or if they have any suggestions for your improvement. You can do that in a lot of ways, like I mentioned, surveys, you can do a video call, however you want to do it is completely up to you. And then providing your own feedback. Again, not a one-way street. You can be proactive in providing feedback on your client's involvement, their responsiveness, the environment that you needed. Just kind of lay it out there and just be like, hey, you were great to work with. I could have done asked for a little bit more here. However you want to say it. Again, you know your client, you know how to communicate with them. So making sure that you're providing your own feedback is very important for them as well. Another step is final documentation. In the social media management world, documentation is really the backbone for a smooth transition. So make sure that you don't leave any digital stone unturned as you say goodbye to your client. So making sure that you compile all the necessary documents, files, passwords, whatever you're holding on to, and making sure that you're providing those to your clients at the end of that transition timeline that you talked about. So organize them in a format that's easily accessible and understandable, like a Google folder or even just a Word doc or something that they'll be able to easily read and go through. And then you also want to clear out any properties or tools. So if you have access to any content calendars, any social media management tools that maybe they own, ensure any of their belongings, whether that's deliverables, data, anything that they now have control over, and that you are deleting passwords, whatever you need to do, just get rid of everything. Have a clean slate. That way it's not bogging down your computer and they're getting it back. So just making sure that all that final stuff is said and done. Have a checklist so that you can complete that process. The next step is just closure and just follow up. So after you've gone through your transition timeline, you've given them everything that you have as far as deliverables, you've cleared out passwords, you've done all that, you've gotten feedback, right? You're going through this process. The last one is just to make a last first impression, right? So a warm and thoughtful farewell can really solidify that feeling or that legacy that they have with you and can really create a very stable ground going forward for future collaboration or referrals or whatever it may be. Just making sure that they leave you with how they came, right? So expressing gratitude, thank them. Thank your client for the opportunity to work with them and acknowledge the role that you played in their professional growth. So just be authentic. It goes a really long way and you can leave a lasting positive impact. And also stay connected. That doesn't mean that you have to talk every day, and just because your contracts ends doesn't mean your professional relationship needs to as well. So keep those lines of communication open. You can share relevant content with them. Send them emails like, "Hey, I thought of you when I read this. I think this would be good for you." If they're on LinkedIn or any other social profiles, add them, follow them, whatever you want to do. Just try to stay connected with them, just in case it does turn into something. It's always a good idea to stay connected with clients. So in the end, after everything that we talked about, offboarding requires thoughtfulness and attention to detail. It really does. When I first offboarded my first client, I didn't follow any of these steps. I wouldn't say it was rocky, but it wasn't how I would want to do it now. I will say that. So an impeccable offboarding experience really signifies your professionalism, your respect for that client, and just understanding that an ongoing client relationship is really important, even if they're not contracted with you. So by implementing the steps outlined, you will not only ensure a smooth departure with your clients that you've served so well, but you will also lay a groundwork for possible return or a positive, awesome word of mouth endorsement that you may get down the road when they're talking to somebody. Keep that in mind. Just remember that the final weeks of your client relationship are not just about wrapping everything up. They are about setting the stage for your next triumph.